Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's your boy Josh the Goat, and we are watching the worst curse techniques explained in JJK. Everybody say hi, YouTube. Everybody say blaze me. Everybody say we love JJK. Everybody say JJK is carrying the anime in 2026. Without further ado,
So, the worst techniques in Jujutsu Kaisen
like, subscribe,
are
and
usually
comment.
the ones that do nothing or have huge physical drawbacks or just ruin the user's life. Throughout
Damn.
JJK, we've seen this happen time and time again, and so today I'm explaining 8 of the worst powers in the series, plus a few bonus ones at the end. To start things off, the first technique in this video belongs to Amai, whose power allows him to transform the sugar in his blood into pudding. An example of this came in chapter 261, when Amai put his hand on an empty plate, and seconds later the pudding just came out of him. I should point out that the only person willing to eat this was Yuji, but this shouldn't come as a surprise considering who he is. Anyway, in this panel, you can see that Amai was sweating and struggling for breath after making just one pudding, and this brings us to the downside of his technique. As a human, Amai's blood sugar needs to—
Wait. So you telling me his technique is just to make pudding, is to be basically a pastry chef, just to make pudding out of his blood sugar? Is that all? Are we dead ass right now?
stay in the normal range like everyone else, because if it gets too low, then he'll suffer from sweating, dizziness, and a ton of other symptoms. The problem for Amai is that the average pudding has roughly 11 grams of sugar, while the average human should only have around 5 grams of total sugar in their bloodstream. This means that to make one of these puddings, Amai's technique raises his blood sugar to unnatural levels. He then quickly transforms that glucose into the dessert, but I guess due to a lack of experience, he uses too much sugar. The end result is that he suffers from low blood sugar for a while, and the symptoms get worse if the pudding is bigger than normal. For instance, in one chapter, Amai made one of the biggest puddings in history, literally one of the biggest of all time, and by doing this, he directly saved someone's life. Minor spoilers ahead, but in one of the Culling Game chapters, we see Angel falling off the top of a building, but instead of hitting the ground, she falls into this giant pudding. Without this pudding breaking her fall, Angel confirmed that she would have died.
So that's the spoiler. The nigga saved Angel's life with the biggest pudding in the world. What would y'all do if y'all had pudding for y'all curse technique?
And for Amai, this was the most exhausting thing he's ever done with this technique. The last things to mention about his power is that, number one, the sugar in his body doesn't have to come out as pudding, since another option is to transfer the glucose in his body into someone else. Because glucose is the body's main energy source, Amai is able to help people by giving them sugar they desperately need. But in theory, he can also hurt people.
You're right, though. Bro, I need to learn, like, I've been learning how to edit. That shit takes so much time, bro. Like, I gotta, like, nigga, I'm gonna get an editor or some shit, because the editing is like, ugh.
By giving them way too much. The medical term for this is hyperglycemia, and in extreme cases, it can be fatal. The second thing to mention is that if you look at the top of Amai's hair, it is in the color of a pudding, and when we look at flashbacks, he wasn't always like this, so I have to assume that this is only a thing because he awakened his technique. Moving on, the next power in this video belongs to Momo, who by her own admission is pretty useless. The name of Momo's technique is tool manipulation, which honestly sounds like it should.
Blue, you got 100 views on your reaction. Congrats, bro. What do you edit on, bro? You gotta let me know what you edit on, like your videos. Like, what do you edit them on?
Do a lot, but throughout the series, she's not used a single tool besides this broom. With her technique, Momo controls the broom with her mind, so even when she's not on it, she can still decide how it moves. Most of the time though, she is either holding the broom or riding the broom, and so for that reason, her classmates use her like a drone. During the night parade of 100 demons, Momo's job was to just stay in the sky and give updates about the location of curses. During the Goodwill event, she also had a similar role, and so when it comes to actual combat, she nearly always stays away from it. Of course, there were times when this wasn't possible. For example, during Shibuya, she decided to make a move when everyone else got frozen. In this scene, she gathered momentum by diving down from the sky, and then she used the broom to generate wind infused with her cursed energy. Momo refers to this as wind scythe, but despite all the build-up, Urame brushed it away with her bare hand. To me, the one question I have about Momo is, what is the extent of her technique? Because with a name like tool manipulation, you'd think it would have way more applications. However, the fact is, Momo is a third-year student, meaning she's had more time to refine her technique than most students who are at the school. If it had potential, then we would have seen something by this point, so I have to say it's unfortunately trash. Now, the third technique in this video doesn't have a name, but if it did have one, it'd probably be something like perception shift or filter manipulation or something along those lines. The wielder of this technique was a random curse user who was suspected to be one of the awakened sorcerers from the Cullen game. A long time ago, this guy was a customer at a cabaret club and he developed a crush on one of the employees. However, in his own words, he doesn't know how to show affection, and so instead of talking to her and building a connection, he just bought her this expensive bag. Sadly for him, the bag wasn't enough to make her interested, and eventually she even forgot where she got it from. Sometime later,
the third-year student at Jujutsu High, bro. Third year, what's your curse technique?
Woman then left her job at the cabaret club and now lives with her fiance inside this building. This is what brings us to the curse user's technique, because for 2 weeks, he'd been stalking this couple 24/7. During that time, he used his power to target the girl who rejected him, and the result was that she now saw her fiancé like this. As you can see, he appears to be some kind of boogeyman, with his eyes taking up like 80% of his face. Importantly though, these eyes are not real, and the only one who sees him like this is the girlfriend, because she is the victim of the technique.
That nigga's cursed technique is just to steal somebody, bitch, or like make somebody very unhappy in the relationship. That's crazy, actually.
Megami's theory was that the technique can track her location, and as long as the culprit stays within 100 meters of her, then this filter will always be active.
His curse technique
Thanks to this, we know the curse user must have been following her closely for 2 weeks.
Let's go ahead and time out Blue for 10 minutes.
And he only got interrupted when Jujutsu High showed up. In this chapter, Megami found a building that was 150 meters tall, and he made the couple travel to the top floor. At the same time, Ijichi was standing by the main entrance of the building, so the curse user wasn't able to follow them. When the couple then reached the top floor, her fiance's face went back to normal since they'd now escaped the range of filter manipulation.
Wow.
What followed this is the curse user went to a nearby building and then ran to the top floor, and from there he reactivated his technique. Even though he was far away, he was still with—
Man, this hating ass nigga. Bro taking his time out of his day to hate on another nigga because he happy he got his bitch.
Within the range, and as a result, the fiance's eyes went back to looking like this.
Wow.
Shortly after this, Jujutsu High then fought with the curse user, with Megami taking him down. What this fight showed us is that filter manipulation can be applied to multiple people at once, and it seems like once you've been marked, the first person you see is the one who gets the big eyes. If we had to say something good about this technique, I say the ability to track the victim is probably the main benefit, since he knew where she was even when he couldn't physically see her. Besides that, the filter would be useful for maybe a—
Yo, Blue, what are you talking about, bro? Blue, time out for 10 minutes.
Kid's birthday party or something like that. And who knows, maybe in the future this power can be upgraded in a way where maybe he can like apply a filter to an entire environment instead of just affecting the looks of one person. I mean, this is purely speculation. I'm just trying to think of ways that it could be better. But for now, the way it is right now, it's easily one of the worst in the series. Because it's so bad, I'm actually a little bit proud that he wasn't killed during the Cullen game. Now, speaking of the Cullen game, one of the weakest players was Remy, whose character was inspired by the tale of the scorpion and the frog. In this tale, the scorpion needed help to cross the river, but the frog was slightly concerned that the scorpion might betray him. After all, scorpions are known to sting people, but in this situation, if the scorpion was to sting the frog, then obviously they'd both drown in the river. Logically, he wouldn't do this since it would kill himself, and so the frog agreed to give the scorpion a ride. However, halfway across the river, the scorpion stung him anyway, and when asked why he did it, there was no logic. All he said was that this is just in his nature. When we translate this to JJK, Remy is clearly the scorpion with her scorpion hair, and the frog is Megami. As we saw, Remy's true nature is that she's always relied on men to provide for her, and in the Cullen game it was the same thing. The men she relied on were Reggie and his comrades. Meanwhile, Megami the frog was thinking that she might betray him, but he still gave her one chance and allowed her to lead him into this trap. Following that, Reggie's gang tried to kill
Wait, that's a trap?
Fushiguro and Remy, and at this point she should have realized that they don't care.
Oh, well,
The
damn.
problem for Remy is
Wait,
that her
hold on,
nature
bro. I just got spoiled. Dude, that's a major spoiler. Oh, well, thanks, bro.
wouldn't allow her to accept this reality.
Yeah, I gotta,
Examine her technique. It's incredibly simple. Essentially, Remy has control over her hair and can attack people with this stinger on the end. After taking a direct hit from this, Fushiguro had no lasting damage. In fact, his main concern was that Remy was stupid enough to try it. Now, switching over to one of the most unlucky characters, Toge Inumaki is up next. Thanks to JJK0, we know that Inumaki's technique has been giving him trouble since pretty much the day he was born. As you probably know, the name of this technique is CRAZT speech, and it's a famous power that belongs to the Inumaki bloodline. On a basic level, users of CRAZT speech turn their words into reality, since any command they give
This is tough, but it's like hard though. Like you can't even talk to your homies.
is then brought to life by cursed energy. The most frequent command we see is Don't Move, which has been used by 3 characters at this point, and it freezes the target in place for a few moments. Other commands include Die, which straight up kills the target, and Sleep, which forces them to take a nap. In theory, this power should be one of the greatest in history, but for Inumaki it has 2 huge drawbacks that are pretty hard to ignore. Firstly, unlike the other cursed speech users that we've seen, Toge's cursed speech is active 24/7 due to the markings around it.
Bro, I'm telling you, bro, they fucking him up, bro. They nerfed him, bro. Imagine if he could turn it on and off, so he could talk to shorties. Like, yo, what's good, ma? He can't even talk to shorties, bro. You say, yo, what's good, ma? You look mad good, like. And he say something crazy, she gonna die. Like, what the fuck?
His mouth. These markings are a pair of snake eyes and fangs, and by having them there, it means that anything he says has potential to become a curse. In fact, growing up, Inumaki cursed people by accident, and he had a lot of trauma before going to Jujutsu High. As a result, Toge only speaks using safe words, aka words that have no chance of cursing anyone. The safe words he chose are all rice ball ingredients, so for example, when he says salmon, that means he agrees with someone, whereas fish flakes means the opposite. By communicating this way, he has no chance of hurting his friends, but obviously he can never live a normal life. Due to cursed speech, Toge doesn't even have the option to leave the Jujutsu world, and is probably way harder to form relationships. This brings us to the second major drawback, which is the physical damage of cursed speech. When saying powerful words, or when facing opponents who are a higher grade, it causes a lot of blowback for the user. On multiple occasions, we've seen Inumaki coughing or throwing up blood, and it's why he now carries throat medicine at all times. By contrast, Yuta has never coughed up blood when using this technique, even when facing powerful sorcerers or using the most dangerous command. This is purely down to the difference in their reserves.
That nigga Yuta is overpowered, by the way. Yuta just be using, like...
Because if Inumaki had more cursed energy, then moments like this wouldn't be such a struggle.
Die. Like, nigga...
Overall, cursed speech is useful on paper, but if you gave Inumaki the option, I'm like 99% certain he would choose not to be born with this power. With that said, the next curse technique is one possessed by an ancient sorcerer whose culling game name was Hazanoki. A long time ago, I did speak about his technique for my video about ancient sorcerers, but for those who haven't seen it, this is a character who rips out his own body parts and then makes them explode. In this panel, we see Hazanoki pulling out his own teeth as blood drips out of his mouth, and then moments later, he detonates 3 of his teeth from a distance. The good thing about this technique is that the strength of the explosion and the timing of the explosion, it all comes down to Hazanoki. An example.
What type of shit is that? What? Oh yeah, the nigga was tough. It was tough edits. But this nigga, bro, you gotta rip out your teeth and body parts to... Does it grow back at least?
Is how in chapter 169, he popped out a tooth and an eyeball, but they both detonated at different times and with different levels of power. Wow. Here we can see the tooth caused a harmless tiny explosion, and the purpose of this was to send the eyeball flying forwards. When the eyeball then exploded seconds later, that explosion was way bigger, showing that, Hazanoki has a degree of control. There was also another occasion where a single tooth caused a massive explosion that killed a ton of cursed spirits. So yeah, the strength of the blast is purely his decision.
Wow.
Now, this might not sound like a really bad technique, but like I said in the intro, the worst techniques are the
nigga, that
ones
sounds
with
horrible.
huge physical drawbacks. And having to do
Duh.
this is not ideal. Now, you could say that Hazanoki does have reverse curse technique, and in fact, he is very good at reverse curse technique, but the thing about RCT is it only helps you after the damage is done. To put it another way, Hazanoki still has to go through the pain of mutilating himself, and it's not like he's just losing a toenail. You know, this guy is popping out his eyes, he's pulling out his teeth, arguably the worst type of pain there is. Without Hazanoki's skill for RCT, the power is unusable. But even with RCT, you know, the user is still putting their body through hell.
That's crazy, bro.
Anyhow, when it comes to the #1 most self-destructive technique, that honor belongs to Kashimo. The name of Kashimo's power is Mythical Beast Amber, or MBA for short, and it's the only technique in JJK that can never be used more than once. To explain what it does, we need to talk a little bit about spoilers for the final arc of JJK.
Oh my
So if you don't want to
gosh.
hear about that, then skip ahead to the timestamp on screen.
I'm sorry, nigga. I'm watching the show, bro. Niggas ain't trying to, you know what I mean? I think I low-key already know what's gonna happen, but
Kokichi's technique isn't actually the problem. Instead, the real problem is his soul. Due to a heavenly restriction that was placed on his soul, Mekamaru was born with only one working limb and a ton of other disabilities. According to the guidebook, he was born to non-sorcerer parents who then gave him to Jujutsu High at a young age, and at this point, his parents had assumed for years that he was dead. In reality though, he was isolated for years inside this room, with the Mekamarus taking care of his daily needs. In exchange for all of this suffering, Kokichi's technique has arguably the widest range of any character, and he can also surpass the limits on his normal cursed energy output. The guidebook describes his technique as being puppet manipulation, which is actually the exact same description that they give to Principal Yaga's technique as well. In Mekamaru's case, he can stay in his room while controlling puppets all over Japan, and these puppets receive his cursed energy and then output it in various ways. Through these puppets, Kokichi can also see the real world and communicate through them, but obviously it's not the same as actually being outside. In chapter 38, he said he'd be willing to leave the Jujutsu world if it meant having a healthy body, and honestly, who can blame him? This is a character who can never live a normal life without some kind of divine intervention. Like I said though, the technique itself isn't the problem because, you know, he could have been born with this technique without a heavenly restriction, and in that case, everything would have been perfectly fine. I think the only problem for him really is that he's just incredibly unlucky. Okay, time for the bonus techniques. These are 4 techniques that could have or arguably should have been included in the main video.
My favorite YouTuber
Number 1, Ryu
reacting to
Ishigori's technique is definitely one of the most pointless since it allows him to
maybe, but we gotta play World Guesser. This is a quick stream. We're not doing all that extra shit, Blue. It's a quick stream. We about to play world tribal guesser shit, and then maybe eat a little ass after. You know, you feel me? Eat a little ass after.
do something that he can already do. For context, Ryu's power is Curse Energy Discharge, but the story points out that Ryu's Curse Energy blasts have the same power regardless of whether he uses his technique. From that perspective, it is one of the most useless. However, the main benefit for Ryu is that it enables him to use a domain. Remember, a true domain expansion needs to be imbued with a curse technique, and if you don't have a curse technique, then you don't have a true domain expansion. We saw a great example of this in Season 1 with this cursed spirit, and according to Gojo, if the spirit had imbued the domain with a curse technique, then everyone would have died. For that reason, Ryu's technique is useful for him since he has a domain, but for 99% of sorcerers, they just wouldn't be able to use it in that way. Number 2 is the construction technique, which I don't think is bad, but it is inefficient. As we know, construction allows the user to convert curse energy into any non-living object, and on paper this sounds amazing, but as we know, it requires way more curse energy than normal techniques. This means that if you're someone who has crappy reserves, then this is not something you can use casually, and you know, even for great sorcerers like Yorozu, it still gave her problems, and she had to think of a whole long complicated workaround to make it viable. Number 3, we have Hanyu's aeroplane hair technique,
Shit's
which is
stupid. This airplane technique shit is so stupid, bro. Like,
one of the most wacky looking powers in the series. Looks like it belongs in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure or something.
facts.
But yeah, the main purpose of this power is to just fly around. For Hanyu, I'd say her main problem is that to have an impact and to hurt someone, you need to really catch them by surprise. And if that doesn't work, she has no other tricks. On top of that, I just feel like if your technique is flying, this is something that
I'd be tough though if my dreads could turn to like a jet engine. Shit, nigga, I'll be out on niggas.
other techniques king up that both useless and also useful at the same time. As we saw in season 2, Nita's ability doesn't heal anyone, but what it does is it stops their existing injuries from getting worse. In Yuji's case, this meant all the damage he suffered up until that point was still there, but thanks to Nita, the pain disappeared and the bleeding also stopped. In other words, this is a technique that allows someone to push through the pain because the pain disappears, but it doesn't heal them in any meaningful way. Anyway, people, those were some of the worst techniques.
Like, subscribe, and comment. Glaze me. We will be starting editing the video soon. And that's about it, yo. Get this video to 2,000 views, and I'll